I could not believe my ears when I heard this. Finally, what we all have been waiting for and calling for, Stephanie White has stepped up to the plate in defense of Caitlin Clark. Stephanie White actually being bold enough to protect Caitlin Clark.
Finally, after months of silence and mounting frustration, Stephanie White has done what everyone in the WNBA world was waiting for. She's spoken up, and not with some vague coach speak or half-hearted PR line. She snapped, calmly, deliberately, and in the most devastating way possible for the league's leadership. Because this time, she wasn't just defending a player. She was defending Caitlin Clark, the face of women's basketball, from being used as a pawn in every single battle the WNBA seems determined to drag her into. Stephanie White's words hit differently because she didn't sound angry. She sounded tired.
It was challenging in a number of levels. It seems like you're alone with Caitlin, but I think first and foremost, she builds up her endurance, her on-the-court activity. It'll be baby step, and I think for us, again, the most important thing is that she's healthy before we really ramp up.
Tired of seeing a 23-year-old kid, one who just wants to play basketball, turned into a lightning rod for every controversy under the sun, when she said, "I hate it all for Caitlin. She's a pawn in a lot of other people's games." That line exploded across social media. Fans heard it, players heard it, and the league office definitely heard it. Because for the first time, a respected head coach didn't just hint at what's wrong with the WNBA, she said it out loud. Let's be real, Caitlin Clark didn't ask for this circus. She didn't demand the spotlight. She became the spotlight. The second she joined the Indiana Fever, the league's ratings skyrocketed. Ticket sales shattered records, and arenas that used to be half empty suddenly sold out. But instead of celebrating that, the WNBA turned her success into a problem. Every discussion about pay, officiating, leadership, and even locker room culture somehow circles back to her. It's like she's not even a person anymore, just a headline generator. White knows it too. She's watched it all season. The cheap shots on the court, the cold shoulders from certain veterans, the league staying silent when Clark gets hacked with no call, then suddenly issuing statements only when fans get angry. White's point was simple. Caitlin Clark isn't the problem. She's the scapegoat. The league and its critics have made her a symbol of everything that divides them, and it's tearing the WNBA apart from the inside. When White said Caitlin is a pawn, she wasn't exaggerating. The league uses her to attract sponsors and new fans. The players use her as leverage in collective bargaining debates. The media uses her for clicks. Even fans use her as a reason to bash or defend the WNBA. Everyone's cashing in on her image while pretending to protect her. And through all of it, Caitlin has stayed professional, quiet, and focused because that's who she is. But the truth is, no one that young should have to carry the entire emotional weight of a league. Stephanie White has seen this kind of thing before. She played in the early days of the WNBA when the league was fighting just to survive. She was part of the first collective bargaining agreement that got players basic health care. So when she says the WNBA is going through growing pains, it's not a buzzword, it's a warning. Back then, players were grateful to just have a league. Now they want what they've earned: better pay, better travel, better treatment, and real leadership. But that leadership has been stuck in neutral, and White knows exactly who's responsible. Without saying the name, she called out Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner who's been under fire for months. Engelbert's leadership has been called everything from tone-deaf to delusional by players and fans alike. From botched officiating responses to hollow PR statements, she's become the face of the league's disconnect. When White said leadership needs to reflect where the league is today, she might as well have said, "Wake up, Kathy." The commissioner's job is supposed to be about protecting the players and guiding the league's growth. But lately, it's been about saving face. Instead of taking accountability, she hides behind press releases and corporate talk. Players like Nafemsa Collier, Sophie Cunningham, and even coaches like Becky Hammon have already voiced their frustration. And now, with Stephanie White joining the chorus, the message couldn't be clearer. The people actually building the league have had enough. But here's the twist. White didn't just attack, she defended. She reminded everyone that all this chaos is part of the process of becoming a mainstream league. Every professional sport went through it. The NBA had its player strikes, its scandals, its ego wars. The NFL nearly collapsed during labor disputes. But those leagues grew because they had leadership that learned from their mistakes. White's message to the WNBA was basically, you can grow, or you can implode. The choice is yours. What makes this moment so powerful is that Stephanie White isn't a loud personality. She's not the type to chase attention or drop sound bites. She's respected because she speaks with reason. So when she says Caitlin Clark is being used unfairly, people listen. She's not defending Clark because she's her player. She's defending her because she's human. because she's watched Caitlyn get hit, mocked, and criticized for things completely out of her control. And through it all, Caitlyn's response has always been the same: play harder, stay humble, move on. That composure is exactly why White's words hit harder. Caitlyn isn't the one fighting back, so White did it for her. She said what fans have been screaming all year, that the league doesn't protect its stars, that it punishes players for speaking honestly, and that it keeps confusing progress with politics. Think about what's happened this season. Caitlyn Clark brought millions of new eyes to the WNBA. But instead of capitalizing on that, the league got wrapped up in ego battles. Players took cheap shots on the court to prove a point. Some veterans went out of their way to downplay her success, while others used her name to demand changes to the CBA. The result? A league divided by jealousy and mistrust. White's comments exposed that division perfectly. She's right. The WNBA wants the fame and money of the NBA, but it's still operating like a college program. Players fly commercial while the executives get bonuses. They fine athletes for speaking out, then turn around and brag about empowerment. They say they want equality, but they're not showing it within their own system. It's not that the WNBA doesn't have talent, it has more than ever, but leadership doesn't seem to know how to handle it. They want growth without criticism. They want headlines without controversy. But you can't have that. Progress is messy. You either embrace it or you lose everything. Stephanie White is one of the few voices brave enough to say it without shouting. And let's be honest, Caitlyn Clark didn't create this mess. She just exposed it. She showed the world how massive women's basketball can be when it's promoted right. But instead of celebrating that, the league's leadership got defensive. It's almost as if success came too fast, and they didn't know what to do with it. And now, instead of building momentum, they're wasting time fighting the very person who brought them relevance. That's why White's calm frustration feels so cutting. She knows this could all fall apart if it keeps going this way. If fans keep seeing their favorite player being disrespected, they'll stop watching. If players keep turning on each other, the product will lose its soul. And if leadership keeps pretending everything's fine, the league's credibility will crumble. At its core, White's message was about respect. Respect for the players, respect for the game, and respect for the fans. She wasn't attacking the WNBA, she was saving it. She was reminding everyone that behind all the sponsorships and politics, there's still basketball. There's still a league full of women who love this game and are fighting to make it better. But that can't happen when the leadership treats its stars like tools instead of people. Caitlyn Clark has become the biggest name in the sport not because she's perfect, but because she's real. She plays hard, she doesn't complain, and she gives fans a reason to care. That's exactly what the WNBA has been begging for, a star who transcends the game. But instead of protecting her, they've let her become a lightning rod for everything that's wrong. White's stand might finally change that. It's forcing people to look at the uncomfortable truth. The league's biggest problem isn't Caitlyn Clark, it's how it treats her. She's brought the spotlight, and now everyone can see the cracks. White's comments weren't an attack, they were a mirror, and the reflection isn't pretty. The WNBA has a choice to make. Either keep using Caitlyn Clark as a shield for its failures, or finally start leading with integrity. Because if they don't, that pawn Stephanie White talked about might decide she's done playing their game altogether. And when that happens, it won't just be Caitlyn Clark walking away. It'll be the fans, the sponsors, and the trust the league has fought so hard to earn. The sad truth is, Stephanie White shouldn't have had to say any of this. It should have come from the top. It should have come from leadership that understands what real support looks like. But since they didn't, she did. She stood up for her player, for fairness, and for the future of women's basketball. And that's why this moment matters more than just one interview. Because it's not just about a coach defending her star. It's about a veteran of the game trying to save the league she loves from destroying itself. In the end, Stephanie White didn't yell, threaten, or point fingers. She just told the truth. And sometimes, that's what hits the hardest. So maybe the real question isn't whether Caitlyn Clark can handle the pressure, it's whether the WNBA can handle the truth. The fallout from Stephanie White's comments has been nothing short of explosive. The league's PR department is scrambling, analysts can't stop dissecting every line of her interview, and fans across social media are calling it the moment the silence finally broke. But what's even more fascinating is that White didn't drop some wild accusation or go after anyone personally. She just said what everyone has been thinking, but too scared to admit. The WNBA has a respect problem, and Caitlyn Clark is paying the price for it. You can feel the shift already. Players, former coaches, and even sports journalists are starting to echo what White said, and it's creating a ripple effect the league can't control. Some are defending her, saying she's brave for speaking up. Others are trying to downplay it, claiming she exaggerated or misunderstood the situation. But you can tell there's fear in those responses. Because when someone like Stephanie White, a coach who's earned respect on and off the court, dares to challenge the system, it hits harder than 1,000 angry tweets. And let's be honest, she's not wrong about Caitlin Clark being dragged into everything. At this point, you can't scroll through a single WNBA headline without her name attached to it. Even stories that have nothing to do with her somehow get twisted to include her. If there's a fight about salaries, it's because of Caitlin Clark. If there's a debate about media coverage, it's thanks to Caitlin Clark. If someone gets snubbed for an award, you guessed it, it's Caitlin's fault. It's ridiculous. What's worse is that the people doing it probably know it's wrong. They know she's just trying to play the game, but her fame has become too convenient for everyone to resist. Every quote about her drives engagement. Every clip of her reactions goes viral. The WNBA has turned Caitlin Clark into a currency, and Stephanie White finally called them out for it. That's what makes this so powerful. White didn't just talk about basketball, she talked about humanity. She talked about how cruel it is to treat a player, any player, as a means to an end. She reminded the world that behind the jersey, behind the highlight reels, there's a young woman who didn't sign up to be the face of a war she didn't start. And that's what the league forgot. They saw dollar signs and headlines, not the human being at the center of it all. But White's honesty has done something unexpected. It's forcing people to choose sides. For months, fans have been divided. Some blamed Caitlin for being overhyped, others accused veteran players of jealousy, and many just blamed the league for mishandling everything. Now the conversation is shifting. Instead of fans attacking each other, they're questioning leadership. They're asking why the commissioner stays silent. They're asking why referees seem inconsistent, why players are still flying commercial, why communication from the top feels like it's run by a PR intern instead of a visionary leader. That's the power of truth. It cuts through the noise. And Stephanie White's truth hit like a hammer. You can almost picture the boardroom right now. Executives huddled around a table trying to figure out how to control the narrative. They'll probably release a carefully worded statement soon, praising White's passion while sidestepping her criticism. But it won't work, because fans don't want statements anymore. They want action. They've heard all the slogans about empowerment and growth. What they want now is accountability. And that's the scary part for the WNBA. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark anymore. It's about every player who's been ignored, dismissed, or told to stay quiet for the sake of unity. White opened the floodgates. Players who've been biting their tongues might finally start speaking out too. The league's biggest stars could start calling for reforms that actually matter. Better travel conditions, fairer officiating, transparency in decision-making. Once that starts, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's ironic, isn't it? For years, the WNBA begged for attention, begged to be mainstream, begged to be part of the larger sports conversation. And now that it finally has all that attention, it doesn't know how to handle it. Instead of celebrating the spotlight, it's panicking under it. And the one player who helped bring it all to this point, Caitlin Clark, is the one getting burned the most. You can sense that frustration in White's voice. She's not angry at the growth, she's angry that it's being mishandled. Because growth without leadership isn't progress, it's chaos. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Meanwhile, Caitlin just keeps showing up. She's still signing autographs after games, still showing humility in interviews, still letting her play do the talking. She hasn't taken a single public shot at anyone, and yet she's the one constantly under attack. That restraint takes more maturity than most people twice her age. And Stephanie White, being a former player herself, understands that better than anyone. She's not just protecting Caitlin because she's her coach, she's protecting her because she's the example. And that's where things get even deeper. White's defense of Caitlin isn't just about one person, it's about setting a tone for the future. Because if the league keeps treating its most popular players like disposable pawns, what message does that send to the next generation? What does it tell young girls dreaming of joining the WNBA one day? That if they become too successful, they'll be resented instead of celebrated? That their leadership will be dismissed as ego? That they'll be criticized more for their fame than their effort? White's words were a warning shot to the entire organization. You can't build a sustainable league on resentment. You can't demand loyalty from players while ignoring their struggles. You can't preach empowerment while punishing individuality. If the WNBA truly wants to grow, it has to start acting like a professional league, not a popularity contest. That means making hard changes. It means hiring officials who can handle the spotlight, executives who actually listen, and a commissioner who knows when to speak up instead of hiding behind a press release. It means treating players like partners, not employees. Because the truth is, without them, there is no league. And that's what makes Stephanie White's statement so devastating. She didn't threaten the WNBA, she exposed how fragile it really is. It's built on players like Caitlin Clark, and yet it's those same players who are being taken for granted. The league wants her star power, but it doesn't want to deal with what comes with it. The scrutiny, the expectations, the pressure to evolve. But evolution isn't optional anymore. Fans are paying attention now, sponsors are watching closely. Every mistake, every tone-deaf statement, every missed opportunity is amplified. The WNBA can't afford to stumble, and yet it keeps doing just that. What's almost tragic is how easy this could be to fix. The solution isn't complicated, it's empathy. Respect your players, protect your stars, communicate honestly, and admit when you're wrong. That's it. The fans would respond instantly. Instead, the league keeps making the same mistakes: silence, spin, and deflection. And now they've got a head coach brave enough to say what everyone else won't. In a way, Stephanie White's moment feels like a turning point. It's one of those rare times where the truth can't be buried. You can't spin her words because they're too clear. You can't discredit her because her reputation is rock solid. And you can't ignore her because the fans won't let you. People are tired of the politics. They're tired of the league pretending everything is fine. They're tired of seeing Caitlin Clark's name dragged through every argument like it's public property. And that's why this moment matters so much. It's not just about one coach or one player. It's about accountability, authenticity, and respect. Even now, as fans debate online, you can feel the shift in tone. They're no longer asking if Caitlin's overhyped. They're asking why the WNBA keeps letting her be disrespected. That's a big change. That's the start of something new. And deep down, you can tell Stephanie White isn't going to stop here. She's not the kind of person who drops a statement like that and walks away. She's the kind who follows through. You can bet she'll keep pushing the league to do better, not just for Caitlin, but for everyone. Because she understands something the suits in the office don't. Protecting your players isn't weakness, it's leadership. If anything, White's comments might have saved the league from itself. Because without voices like hers, the WNBA would keep spiraling. Too proud to admit its flaws, too slow to evolve, too distracted by internal fights to realize how lucky it is to have a player like Caitlin Clark in its ranks. Caitlin isn't the enemy of the WNBA. She's its greatest opportunity. She's brought millions of new fans into the fold. She's proven that women's basketball can sell out arenas, dominate ratings, and inspire a generation. The league just has to stop fighting her and start standing with her. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Stephanie White's explosion will finally achieve. Maybe this is the wake-up call leadership needed, because if they can't see the value of the person who just revolutionized their sport, then they don't deserve to lead it. At the end of the day, Caitlin Clark doesn't owe anyone anything. She doesn't need to prove her toughness, her humility, or her worth. She's already done that 100 times over. What she deserves, what every player deserves, is a league that values them as people, not pawns. And thanks to Stephanie White, that conversation can't be ignored anymore. The WNBA has reached its crossroads. Either it steps up, embraces the players who built its rise, and learns from its growing pains, or it continues pretending everything's fine until the fans finally walk away. Because as Stephanie White made painfully clear, if the league keeps using Caitlin Clark instead of supporting her, the damage won't just be to one player, it'll be to the entire sport. And maybe, years from now, when people look back at this moment, they'll realize this was the turning point, the day someone finally said enough, the day the truth outshined the PR. The day a coach reminded the league that leadership isn't about silence, it's about standing up for what's right. Because the truth is, Stephanie White didn't just defend Caitlin Clark, she defended the soul of the WNBA itself.